I'd rather create something that others criticise than create nothing and criticise others.
If you have high quality product behind the bar, it's like a weapon.
It's not about the figures. It's about who those figures are.
The Hospopreneurs Podcast.
I'm going to drink this beer.
Yeah, let's crack them.
With James Henderson.
Hello and welcome to episode 80 of the Hospopreneurs Podcast. 16 years on from starting the successful Australian point of sale system, Automate, Mark Calabro and Shannon Hautot have invested over $2 million in seed funding for another tech startup, Hungry. Automate put Mark and Shannon in a strong position to understand the retail market, providing point of sale software to over 2,500 Australian venues, and it's processed more than $3 billion worth of food orders, which is a lot of data. The subsequent knowledge that's brought now has Mark and Shannon driving this new online ordering platform and QR order at the table tech with Hungry. This is an interesting wave in mid-market retail at the moment that previous guests Stephen Permutico and Kim Teo are also acting on. If you're in hospitality retail, tech, or operations, this is one to pay close attention to.
Hello and welcome to the show, Mark and Shannon.
Thank you.
Great to be here. It's a pleasure to have you guys in. Now, you know that the first question I ask is usually around a crazy hospitality story, but today I'm actually going to ask a different question. I'd like to know what your exceptional or memorable hospitality experience that jumps out to you might be.
I'd have to say one of my most favorite things has been in Singapore, eating Singapore crab. It's so messy, but just luxurious. Love it.
I've not had Singapore crab. So what makes Singapore crab different from other crab?
It makes my nose bleed. It's just so hot. The chili is beautiful. You're in heaven and hell at the same time. It's wonderful.
Wow. Any particular stories from you, Mark?
So my most memorable food experience would have been last year whilst I was in Bordeaux celebrating a friend's birthday, and we were at a market there, and if anyone who's been to France would know that the food there it's just impeccable. It's the best anywhere you'll get in the world, and we were in a chateau that was about 450 years old, and we were cooking this fresh food up, and it was pretty special.
What made it such a powerful experience for you?
I think it's what food does to us every day, and it actually creates moments. And we created a moment there that day that I think we'll all certainly remember for the rest of our lives. And that's certainly a passion of mine, and that is creating moments. And food is often the center of that. And that was a really good example of a special moment for me.
What do you believe, whoever would like to answer this particular question, but what do you believe it is in food that makes it so powerful to be able to create those moments?
That's a really good question. Sharing food together with family, friends, our tribe, we've been doing that for millennia. So it's something that's very deeply imprinted in our DNA. We know it's very social, and it's just something that I think that just brings people back together to share maybe a simple moment, but there's something that's very, very bonding, very earthly, very calming about sharing food together.
It's a primal experience.
It is.
But it's a part of celebration. It's not a single birthday that goes by where our family, we're all at the same restaurant that we go to all the time and time again. And we love it. You know, you've got to celebrate as well. And that's where hospitality comes in perfectly.
Yeah. And being a team background, it's always craziness around food. You're already talking about what your next meal is, what you're eating, your current meal.
I love that. Italians are fantastic. My family's European as well, and I totally understand that. Growing up with my nana, meal after meal, you still finish, you're like, no more nana.
Can't say no.
No. But I think that leads us on to the next question I like to ask around why you do what you do. So on a really macro, large scale perspective, how do you guys look at things?
Yeah, so, we've been part of this industry now for nearly 20 years, and we've seen some amazing, talented people come through this industry, and it's one that's very dear to our hearts. We've been very fortunate to work with some very talented people, but also celebrating the small mum and dad business out in the suburbs who they're servicing a local community. Going back to what we were saying before, people still want to go out and share moments and occasions together at a local bar, restaurant, cafe.
Shannon, you've got more of a tech focus. How has that dynamic evolved over your time working with Mark?
Great question. Yeah, so we actually started off working together back in the corporate world a long time ago. We're talking about a very long time ago. We were both doing software development. We went to university, did the same course. And let's say we've got different strengths in different areas. And so we had to bail out Mark sometimes with his software development. But it's a strong point of what I do. It's what I love. It's what I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. Get involved in software, get hands dirty with software, make it the best that it can be, improve processes that are already flawed, and there's so many things that you can do with software. It's almost unlimited. It's just something that I've got a big passion for, and I just love to get involved in software. It's a different dynamic where Mark has his skill set, and his skill set is definitely talking to customers and getting out there and getting in front of them, knocking down doors, pounding the pavements. He's gone through many pairs of shoes, and that's a skill set that he brings to the table, and I bring a different set of skill sets, but I think it really works well.
What role does technology play in the industry?
You know what? If you had asked me that a few years ago, I would have said not a lot. But these days, technology in the hospitality industry is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And if you're not getting involved in technology, you may not be around in the future. The days of people just walking past and coming into your restaurant and then coming in again and again and again, if you're not on social media, if you're not on review sites, if you're not on some of these delivery platforms, you really get lost and people just don't know about you. So you've really got to work with the technology. And there's some technology where it works for a restaurant and some it doesn't work for a restaurant. So you really got to pick and choose the right stuff, but you have to get involved.
If I can just also add to that, I had a friend from overseas in town yesterday. We went out to Danny's Burgers, who have been there since 1945, and then we went over to Mario's just down the road from here.
Since the 60s?
Roughly, yeah. And the interesting thing is, and I often talk about this with other people in the industry, that you've got the men that greets everyone at the door there as they walk in. And it's going back to, the core of what hospitality is. And it's the little things like that, although we have this conversation about technology with old-fashioned customer service, the thing that I notice a lot is that it's the old-fashioned customer service that people really struggle with. That's the bit that has to be genuine, and it's also a lot of hard work. That then leads into the question is, how do I scale a business around that? Because I think a lot of people open up a business and they want to be front page of newspapers, they want to be the best cafe, they want to have multiple venues, and that is where technology must come in center stage.
Absolutely.
But it was interesting just yesterday going around to some very nostalgic old world charm venues who it's not about technology, but there's very few operators left like that.
It's a question that we've explored on the program before around how you scale a hospitality business. And it's really interesting to hear your perspective having that tech background, tech orientation towards what you guys do. I'd like to know what you guys believe the businesses or brands that you've built, what's made them fundamentally different to other tech brands in the industry?
We've always taken a position that's first about the user experience. So keeping things as simple as possible and translating that back to this industry where we've always seen high staff turnover.
Typically, staff in a restaurant, they're still in high school, most of them. And they're still going through learning, and they're not exactly people that have gone through university. Most staff are pretty young. So everything that we do has to be simple, easy, and able to be picked up with almost no training, if anything, a minute's training. That's it.
And it comes back down to that whole user experience, which, although it's a very big buzzword now, back when we were at university, it was actually called back then.
Human-computer interaction.
Hadn't been coined yet, UX. But that's always been deep in our DNA, the way we've always thought about building things.
So you say the user experience and the human-computer interaction is core to what you guys have built. How have you actually tested for those sorts of things? And how do you really explore what drives people?
Every time we do something new, we get embedded into the business. So we'll actually go out on site, and we've even brought our developers out on site, and we set them up in the corner of a restaurant next to a PowerPoint with their own computers. And even back in the day, they had their old CRT, big clunky monitors. You've got to get embedded. You've got to understand it. You've got to live it. You've got to breathe it. You've got to get into the kitchen. You've even got to sometimes get on the pans and just do something to experience it. So we find you've got to get involved. You can't just let somebody else tell you how it works. You've got to be there. You've got to see it. You've got to feel it yourself.
Something that you guys also have a bit of experience in, and I believe would shed some interesting light on, is whether to bootstrap versus capital injection as well. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how you guys have negotiated that.
There's definitely pluses and minuses for both sides. I think for us, it was a natural fit because we bootstrapped our first business, and we just did that because the tech wreck came through 2001 and we thought, you know what, let's not get a job and just build our own business and see where we go with that. And we had no backers or anything like that. So we just started from scratch. It's tough. It's a long, tough road, but there's great things because you get to do exactly what you need to do, exactly what you want to do. You've got nobody else, no oversight to control the way that you want things to happen. So a lot of benefits to bootstrapping, but these days as well, if you want to get a business going, you have to go fast. So we do see that's definitely an advantage to try and get some capital in, give away a little bit of equity, a little bit of control, but get the right people involved. Don't just get anybody's money. Make sure you don't do that.
I think it's important that you fundamentally have a business first. It can be quite dangerous going out to raise capital, particularly if it is your first business. If you've done it before, if you fail, that's probably setting you up for success in your next endeavor.
Financially, cash is leverage. When you've got money there, it'll just magnify what's good or what's bad.
Absolutely, yeah. You can only sell to so many people with one salesperson.
Yeah.
You get cash, you can sell to a lot of people in one go. So there's definitely advantages to getting cash in.
What advice do you have for listeners who are making that decision and maybe going through the process of negotiating capital raising?
I think surround yourself with good people. I think that's always an important thing in business, particularly advisors.
I think one of the critical things that we've learned over the years is don't be afraid to get somebody into your business quickly. Get some money in quickly because then you can utilize those funds very well. Don't go out and splurge the money, but get them in quickly so you can start that process of what it's like to have an investor on board.
I think that my question here is going to tie both of those together. And it's around, you said good people, you said mentors and advisors, you said get an investor on board. What sort of background should people be looking for those investors or those advisors?
Yeah, easy one. Things that you're not good at. So the sooner you can decide actually where your strengths and weaknesses are, I think the better off you are. So if you're not good with capital, great. That's someone that you want to go out and see.
I always find as well, somebody who's been there, done that, but he's still doing it as well. There's a lot of people out there that have got previous success and they love to rest on those laurels. But I find you want the people who are still in the game, still keeping up with everything because things change very quickly. So you can get very started very quickly.
Hungry people.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with hungry people, I think.
Hungry people.
Hungry people, as many as you can.
In your answer there, Shannon, you touched on the tech world changing very, very quickly. And in the time that you guys have been involved in business, a lot of things have changed, particularly with tech.
Especially in the last 3 years, yes.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So even in the last 3 years, you've seen things like software as a service and all these other things emerge.
Yeah, so definitely with the emergence of cloud, with the emergence of 4G and mobile technologies. Social media, yes. Instagram has been huge in hospitality. It's a medium that really resonates with hospitality. It resonates with consumers, it resonates with merchants. And if you're not on Instagram, you don't exist almost. So there's some good points and there's some bad points as well. A lot of merchants don't like Google reviews because there's no way for them to really interact with the person and make sure that they were looked after. There's nothing worse for a merchant to get a review from somebody who's just left and they could have just said, hey, I'm not happy with this meal right there and then. And that's one of the things that we want to build into Hungry as well. Make sure that people can converse whilst they're sitting down eating their meal and say, you know what, something's not quite right about this meal. I prefer to fix it now. And I guarantee you the merchant would prefer it, the managers, the staff, the kitchen, they would prefer to fix it right there and then when you're in the venue, rather than wait 5 minutes later and get a bad Google review.
Definitely. And from the ops perspective, I 100% know that every venue wants to know straight away, discreetly, so that they can fix that immediately.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you think technology is changing that interaction between customers and venues?
I've seen a lot of great products that have come in recent years, from accounting systems to rostering, time and attendance. They've really improved efficiencies of running these businesses. I think in more recent years, where we've had some really big global players come onto the scene, there's just been a lack of thought or care for business owners, and it's all about servicing consumers. Now, we've seen a lot of behaviours change now that we've seen another generation coming through. I have people that I speak to with their children, 12, 13, 14, who refer to their phone as their digital fridge. So we've seen a lot of disruption.
I kind of want to open that a bit more. So the digital fridge, because of delivery platforms.
Yeah, so if they're hungry, they don't go to the fridge anymore. They just go straight to mum or dad's phone. So it's interesting. We're no longer going out and looking at something in the fridge and cutting it up.
Or taking the 5-minute walk down the street just to pick up your own food.
Pulling money out of a wallet to pay for it, or even a credit card, where we just sort of click, 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 and someone arrives at my front doorstep with my lunch. So that's all very interesting, and we've spoken a lot about that over recent months.
And I think as well, this technology is great. It's here to stay, and consumers have gotten a great deal and really love it. But most of them probably don't know that some of these delivery platforms are charging that 35% rate, which could even go higher. And they're not really sustainable for merchants. And if the consumers knew that, would they stop using it? I'm not sure, but I think it's unbalanced at the moment, where there's a lot of big players out there, global players. They're definitely giving consumers a great deal. Merchants are struggling, but there's ways to make it work for your business. And that's what I mentioned before with technology, where you've got to make it work for you. You've got to utilize it, but make sure that you can make your customers your own customers. Bring them back to you rather than you're just in a wash of other people, other restaurants all around you.
So how can merchants make that work? Is it a discussion on the operational end, or is it a marketing answer?
It's a bit of all the above. We were at an event the other night, and there was a discussion around what happens when you open a restaurant and the involvement with media outlets, social, etc., PR. The discussion quickly went into that lull 12 or 18 months after you've opened.
Where you're not the hot thing anymore, or somebody else has eclipsed you as the next hottest thing.
So that's no easy one answer to fix that. But what anyone getting involved in this industry, and for a lot of people who do it for the first time, just aren't aware of all of the challenges and how hard it actually is and the things that you miss out on. Kids' sporting events, social occasions, weddings, whatever it is. It's a very, very, very demanding industry. But the conversation quickly went about how does it, your business then survive and go into years 2, 3, and 4? There's not a lot of restaurants out in Australia that get to that 10-year mark. There's not many at all. So it's really about how do you know your customer? How do you then be able to engage with them when they're not in your venue?
What is the answer to that?
Well, for us, it's very simple, and it's about providing and building tools that promote and enable that engagement, not cut it off or rob it, that we've seen with a lot of platforms. And it's not just the delivery platforms, but there's a lot of technology available that's really driven by discounting to get people back in the venue, notwithstanding that there's a part of the market that certainly want to go out and eat cheap.
Or get a good deal,
We get a good deal, but certainly when we've seen a lot of this now where we're offering 2-for-1s to get people in the venue. If that's the mandate of a business, to just get people in the venue at any cost, I personally don't believe that's a good thing for this industry as a whole.
Yeah, a 2-for-1 is essentially a 50% discount. So, if you ask any other business, if you can sustain getting people in the door and giving away half of your revenue, they'd tell you you're crazy. But a lot of people are doing it at the moment just to get more traction, get more people through the door, more bums on seats. I think there's a place for it, but you've got to do it at the right time, when you need it, get those people in, but make sure that you get their details, you get their name, their address, their phone number, whatever it is that you can do to communicate back to them.
What is interesting from an economics perspective is that on one end, it sounds like there's more competition that's required for delivery platforms, but on the other end, venues are already getting squeezed. And then from here, there might be an oversupply. There's too much competition between venues.
Absolutely.
So there are too many venues, but then we need more delivery platforms, because otherwise they're going to get charged through the nose. So if the supply of venues drops, they're going to be more reliant individually on those platforms, won't they?
It depends. If we're talking about, so people ordering from their home or office, it provides a great convenience. It's great for consumers. However, the commercial reality for business owners is that they struggle to make a profit.
Well, usually on every single one of those orders, they're making no profit or actually losses. And they're just hoping that those people will come back to them in the restaurant.
So what we're seeing is the rise now of a lot of business owners setting up another business in the back kitchen to try and utilise a bit of the kitchen or to attract some customers under a different brand. So they also, a big thing for people who have their own business or own brand that they're very, passionate about is what happens when something goes out and it gets tipped or spilt or the long route out. It affects the product. So by
we've all seen those pictures of pizzas where they're squished into a 5mm pizza.
Yes.
And it's horrible. We've all probably had that experience too.
Yes.
So, we just talk about one part of the large overarching problem for this industry. Now, a lot of it is around bringing profitability back. What does that mean? Whilst also giving consumers great dining experiences, which is equally as important.
What does the future look like then?
So recently I've gone off gluten. So if I'm going to go for breakfast now, I want to go to a place where I know that there's at least a few items on there that are gluten friendly. So if I'm going to get out my phone and on Google or wherever it may be to look at a cafe in a suburb that I haven't been to for a while, I would love for a platform to say to me, hey, although there's 10 cafes nearby, there's 3 here that the chef or the owner that's delivering something, a menu that's more around whether it's vegan or gluten-free or whatever it may be, my lifestyle choices. So it's about bringing relevancy back to consumers. And it's kind of like what Google did over 20 years ago to search engines, when there was a whole myriad of search engines available throughout the 90s. And it was really just the one that made it just super relevant for people to be able to find. And no one wants to go and have a bad meal. Okay, we're spoiled by choice now. And if you have a bad experience, you kind of go, you know what, I'm not going to get that moment back.
Yeah, so one thing that we're doing with Hungry is we are collecting a lot of data on what people eat, where they eat, what they like, what sort of price point they're looking at. Do they go for the gluten-free items or not? And we're trying to use that data in a non-creepy way. So we've got a lot of AI and ML, machine learning, artificial intelligence built into the system, which suggests the right place to go, but also gives you maybe an incentive to go there as well. It might give you a free garlic bread, so it's not going to break the merchant, but it's also going to give the consumer some good value. That's where we see the future heading.
And also bringing loyalty back. Loyalty is, I think, something that the industry has struggled with for a long time. The obvious one was, buy 6 coffees, get the 7th one free, the whole coffee cart thing. In the absence of you, the business owner, standing behind the counter for every trading hour and knowing who your regulars are and being able to go up to them and greet them and maybe offer them a shot of vodka or whatever it is after the meal.
Yes.
Having systems that can actually also work for you in terms of loyalty, and we're doing a whole bunch of stuff in that space.
That's very interesting. And loyalty was the reason that I first entered the industry, because I started, listeners all know, it's not a revolutionary idea, but it was digitizing a coffee loyalty card. And then the journey of that is a whole other thing. And I've done other interviews on other shows about that. So I'm very interested to see what the future holds for you guys. But as we get close to the end of the episode, I've only got a few more questions to go. So I'd love to ask you how you handle competitors. We talked about competitors on a more retail end, but how have you handled competitors in your space as a POS system? And then now in another business, it's broadened into a more customer-driven business. So I'd like to hear how you guys have handled competitors over both of those spaces.
For me, it's always about being the best that you can do and excellence in everything that you do. If I look at our other business, which we ran for 16 years, it was really about we're the ones that are changing the trends. Our focus is about improving people's lives in their business or their relationship with their staff or whatever it may be. I think it can be dangerous to get caught up in what your competitors are doing. I think the focus definitely needs to be on yourself, your team, and the products and services that you're providing the community.
It's an interesting point, though. We have a funny dynamic where sometimes a third-party company, we might be completely competing against them in one company, but then working with them as a partner in the other company. So it's a balance.
That has its own complications.
Absolutely.
For them. Like, do they feel that there might be a conflict of interest when they engage with you?
Possibly, yeah. So I think as well, we draw the lines. We try and work out where we're not going to overstep on what they do and see if we can segment what we do and try to make a balance there. It's not easy, but it's definitely makes life interesting.
So it's a longer negotiation for the process to be partners, I guess, if you're working with businesses that are competitors in another space.
No, I think it's fairly quick because it's actually, there's mutual benefits on both sides. Like, so if we've got a customer who has a point of sale system and they might use, say, Deliveroo, it's definitely in their interest if the point of sale can integrate with Deliveroo. So whatever orders they do get, they don't have to double handle. Honestly, from our point of view, we see this as a very connected world, and that people who 10 years ago we might have battled head to head with on a daily basis, we now talk to, not on a daily basis, but every once in a while. And so our competitors can sometimes be people that we partner with and we cooperate with. And we speak to most of our competitors fairly regularly as well. So I think there's a segment and enough market out there for everybody to exist. And we've all got our different points of difference. We've all got our niche and things that make us best at what we do. And there's definitely enough room in the market for that.
I'm interested to know, you guys talked about mentors and advisors, investors before. Who tells you guys when you're wrong?
Usually each other.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, I got that vibe earlier on that you have some differences of opinion. Where do they normally come in?
I think 99% of the time, we're on the same page. And then when that 1% comes up, it might not come up straight away, but we'll circle back to it 24 hours later, 48 hours later, and we'll go, wait a second, that bit that you said didn't make sense or whatever it might be, let's work this out. And then we work it out. And you know what? We come up with some great compromises sometimes. I think that's what you got to do. If you're 100% aligned all the time, apart from just being weird, I don't think it would work.
If you've got a business partner that's just like you and you're in agreement with everything, I think, I wouldn't go there. I'd much prefer to have someone that's going to be challenging me, that's going to be very different in my thinking. Again, it's complementing.
And best ideas should always win. So regardless of who it comes from, you got to put your ego aside and just go, you know what? That's a better idea than what I had. Let's do that. You've just got to run with that.
What's your biggest challenge right now?
How much time have we got?
I saw both of you sit back when I asked the question. So
what we're doing right now is we're scaling out a business, and it's what you would normally do in maybe 3 or 4 years. We're doing in about 3 or 4 months. So it's just the pace of change every day. It's you come up with a strategy 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks later, it's already something else is now.
It's in the bin.
How do you keep up with that change then?
You don't work 9 to 5. It's just effort. And it's just having good people around you.
And one of the biggest parts is just keeping up with changes that you don't know about as well. And so you just got to text each other, Slack each other, email each other. Well, forget about email. That's too slow these days. You've just got to get that communication across that something's changed. I'm giving you a heads up. If you don't have that, things can go really wrong really quickly.
Ultimately, what role do you want to play in the industry?
If I say on behalf of the industry part, because that's been a big part of what we've been doing up until recently, it's really about bringing profitability and enjoyment back. I've seen way too many great operators and chefs just over it. People saying flat out, I'm out. I wouldn't open up another business again, ever. It's quite depressing if you go out there and speak to a lot of these operators. It's not a good thing. So I would love to see them go, you know what? I feel like I'm in control of my business again. Ultimately, I'm making money or winning awards, whatever it is, it's that thing. And really been excited about what this industry has given to so many people. And on the flip side with consumers, it's really about pairing them with venues that they want to eat. If you have someone that goes into a venue that the chef doesn't think about catering for them, what it means is that they're likely to take to social or write a bad review. Now, that person probably shouldn't have gone there because that chef isn't thinking of a menu designed around people that are vegans or gluten-free. So it's really about people going to venues that they love, and for business owners, having more people come in that they love to serve.
Last question for you, gentlemen, is who would you like to hear on the show next?
Can we just throw in Richard Branson?
Richard Branson is someone that I have sent some emails to. I would really love to have Richard Branson on myself.
Mine was an impossible one unless you can come up with bringing someone back from the dead, but it would be Anthony Bourdain. I think he was just an amazing person. And I think that a lot of people that I know when they travel just used to watch his shows. Where Anthony is, you eat. It's great. And I found him hugely entertaining as well. He was a great man.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today, guys. It's been amazing having you on.
Thanks, James. It's been great.
Thank you.
The show today was produced by the in-house audio team at Hospopreneurs, led by Jake Olver. Voiceovers were by Angus Brennan. To learn more, head to hospopreneurs.com.